Hello, Clay County in Florida, and anybody else who might be watching. Today we're going to talk about turtles. I know I've been telling you we're going to get to those. Well, today's the day. What I want to do is I want to refer you to an article submitted to Apologetics Press by one of our members at Science Freedom Florida, Dr. Jerry Fausz. And the article is entitled Unnatural Causes, and I'll provide the link to the article itself in the comments below this video. And I highly recommend that you read it. It's such a good article. It's an amazing article to get down to the basics of this whole argument. And I'll just start off by telling you about the turtles, and then we'll get into the meat of the argument. In the article, Dr. Fausz tells a story about Stephen Hawking that he was relating something that had happened a while back. I don't know if it's true or if it's not, but he said there was an astronomer giving a lecture on how the solar system worked, how the planets orbited the sun through the solar system. And when he finished, there was an older lady that stood up in the back, and she said that all of this is rubbish and none of it's true. And she said, we know that the Earth is flat like a plate and it sits on the back of a turtle. Well, the astronomer said, well, what's the turtle sitting on? And the old lady said, well, you're very clever, young man, but we all know that it's turtles all the way down. And what this goes to show is that there is a problem when you start with assumptions, that you end up having to build more assumptions and more assumptions and more assumptions on top of that. And it ultimately gets into the idea of building a supernatural origin to get to all of these natural effects that the scientists or the evolutionists and the atheists want us to believe are the only thing that exists. So I'm going to start off with some basic laws of the universe. The very fundamental law of the universe, the one that all of science is built on, is the law of cause and effect. It says that for every material effect, there is a superior, that means it's big enough to cause the effect, and antecedent, that means it has to come before it, okay, or outside of it in some way, cause. So for every material effect, there's a superior and antecedent cause. And we as scientists study material effects. We study things that exist, things that are happening, events that are happening, or events that have happened in the past, like the formation of the Grand Canyon and whatnot. And we try to understand the effect to link us back to the cause, so that we can understand the cause. And if the cause is a natural cause, maybe we can even reproduce that cause so that we can reproduce the effect and maybe make some money off of it or help the world or whatever our purpose for being scientists is. When we talk about the universe and we talk about science, we only deal in material effects. However, we're not limiting ourselves, or we shouldn't limit ourselves, to only material causes. In fact, the article that Dr. Fausz posted shows that that's actually impossible to do, and we're going to study that when we take a look at some of these other laws, and we're going to give you an example. A couple of other laws that we need to understand. We know that the universe is finite. It's based on physical laws, law of gravitation, law of thermodynamics, Coulomb's law. There's actually 4 laws of thermodynamics. We're only going to talk about 2 of them today. But the very idea that we're governed by laws limits the universe. But we also have some understandings that the universe is finite in all of its aspects. It's finite in time, it's finite in space, it's finite in matter and energy. All of the material things of the universe are limited. They're not infinite. Okay? Well, that causes some problems. So first of all, let's talk about the first law of thermodynamics. First law of thermodynamics says that the amount of heat, which heat is energy available to do work, is finite. We expand that out to the general law of conservation of energy and matter and say that the amount of energy in the entire universe, the amount of matter in the entire universe is finite. You can't create it. You can't destroy it. There's only so much of it. And then we get to the second law of thermodynamics that says that heat energy flows from high temperature to low temperature. And that's the natural flow. It's kind of this relentless flow that you can't really get away from. The universe is running out of useful energy. It's winding down, and eventually it's going to have an end. And that also implies that there's a beginning to the universe. So time is finite, the amount of energy available is finite. All of these things are limited for the universe. All right? Well, the evolutionists and the atheists who argue that all causes must be material, that's causes, not the effects, but they argue that all the causes have to be material as well, run into a contradiction. It forces them to call on something that's supernatural, which by definition is anything outside of our laws of physics, our laws of the universe. But they have to call on this for their models to work. So knowing that the universe is finite in time and in all of these aspects, let's focus now on the Big Bang. Now, I'm not supporting the Big Bang. I don't believe in the Big Bang. There's no evidence for it. It's just an assumption. But we're going to use their model to show their own inconsistencies. The Big Bang is said to have been a singularity. So we're all matter and energy occupied the same point. They even talk about it. It was a point that was so tiny it was no bigger than the period at the end of this sentence. Most of the textbooks put it that way. In mathematical terms, a singularity would be like dividing by zero. If you divide by zero, we learned very early on that dividing by zero is undefined. Well, what does it mean to be undefined? It means the laws of physics don't work. And if you talk to any of the big cosmologists, Stephen Hawking is the biggest name, the one that most of us recognize, they say that at the Big Bang, there was infinite mass density. There was an infinite curvature of space and time. That's 3 infinites in a finite universe. And in such a system, the laws of physics can't exist because the laws of physics are limiting. They're finite in nature. And so infinite things would break them. And what that means is for them to appeal to the Big Bang as a viable model for the universe, they have to appeal to the supernatural. And what they want us to do is they want us to go backwards. They want us to assume evolution is true, and then we go backward to abiogenesis, and then we go backward to the formation of the Earth and the solar system and stars and the whole universe, and they just keep going back and back and back and back, and eventually they get to the Big Bang, and we just keep trying to go back to all of these natural causes for everything. But then when you get to the end of their list, you end up getting to a supernatural. The Big Bang had to have been supernatural by their own thinking, because it is a violation of the laws of physics. That's what supernatural means. It's above natural, or it's outside of the natural. And what we mean when we say natural is according to the laws of physics. So they appeal to this infinite stack of turtles. They appeal to an infinite stack of assumptions that ultimately leads to a supernatural conclusion. And we when we talk about something that is outside the laws of physics, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I don't have any problems with that if they're honest about it. But when you appeal to something that's outside of the laws of physics and you appeal to supernatural, you're getting away from empirically tested science. You're getting away from the things that we can repeat, and you're really getting into the realm of religion. And that's part of what we're going to discuss moving forward is that atheistic evolution, theistic evolution, those are actually religious dogmas. Atheism is a religion. I'm going to do a segment on the idea that atheism is a religion. But evolution, cosmological evolution, that's the evolution of the universe, is all a religious dogma that appeals to the supernatural. And what they've done is over the past 100 years plus is they have gotten the public school system down to where they're allowed to teach their infinite stack of turtle religious dogma to the exclusion of all other religious dogma. And it's establishing a state religion of atheism, and you can see the effects. You can see what the last 30 years or so have been like, which is kind of the end game of their They're ideas. This is the end result with all of the things that are happening in our society right now. This is the product of that. And so we want them to be honest. We want the court systems to be honest about this. We want them to admit that this is a religious dogma, that it is an appeal to the supernatural, and get away from this idea that, well, we're only dealing with science, or we're only dealing with natural things, and therefore the rest of you aren't scientists. And it's just simply not true. Thank you guys for watching again. Hopefully this one wasn't as long. It was only about 10 minutes, and I'm going to try to keep them short, and around this time or a little bit shorter from here on out. If you have any comments, comment below. Find us on Facebook. Until next time, thank you very much for watching.